Disguised millionaire orders steak. Ex-convict waitress passes note that leaves him speechless. I know who you really are. Marcus chin stared at the crumpled napkin in his trembling hands, the words scrawled in desperate handwriting burning into his retinas. The $2,000 bottle of wine he had just ordered suddenly tasted like ashes. Around him, the golden chandeliers of Meridian Prime cast dancing shadows that looked more like prison bars closing in. He had arrived there that night, wearing a worn leather jacket and faded jeans, playing the role of just another middle-class customer testing his own restaurant. What he didn't expect was to be unmasked by the one person he would least suspect, the quiet waitress with the barely visible prison tattoo on her wrist. Marcus Chun was worth $340 million, though no one in that room knew it. At 38 years old, he owned a chain of luxury steakhouses across 12 states, each one a testament to his journey, from a Portland food truck to the pinnacle of fine dining. But success had isolated him behind walls of sycophants and calculated smiles. Every conversation was filtered through knowledge of his wealth, every relationship tainted by hidden motives. Tonight's disguise was his monthly ritual in search of truth. He would infiltrate one of his restaurants unrecognized, hoping to glimpse his staff's authentic behavior when they thought the boss wasn't watching. Most visits left him disappointed, but not surprised. Mediocre service, cost-cutting, the usual sins of employees who believed they were invisible. But Maya Santos had been different from the moment she approached his corner table. While other servers had dismissed his modest appearance with barely disguised disdain, Maya had treated him with genuine respect. She had recommended the house specialty not because it was expensive, but because she saw him looking at it twice, when he ordered the most expensive items on the menu as a test. She showed no surprise or sudden enthusiasm, just the same consistent professionalism. What Marcus couldn't know was that Maya had recognized something in his eyes that went far beyond his disguise. She had seen that particular type of careful observation before, in places where survival depended on reading people correctly. The way he observed the dining room, cataloged every interaction, assessed every detail. It reminded her of someone else entirely. Someone from a life she had desperately tried to leave behind. Maya had served 18 months at Riverside Women's Correctional for a crime that had shattered her family. The conviction had been fair, but the circumstances were more complicated than any court could capture. Now, 8 months into parole, she had rebuilt her life one shift at a time, determined to prove that people could change. But recognition was a dangerous game, and she had just played her cards. The note she had passed to him wasn't just about knowing his identity as Marcus Chun, businessman and millionaire. It was about knowing something more, something that connected them both to a truth neither wanted to face. A truth that would explain why she had taken this job, why she had been watching him even before tonight, and why her presence there wasn't the coincidence he thought it was. Marcus raised his eyes from a napkin to find Maya standing across the dining room, her dark eyes fixed on his with an intensity that made his chest tighten. She wasn't afraid of being caught. She was waiting. The question was whether he would be brave enough to discover what she really knew, or if he would do what powerful men always do when confronted with uncomfortable truths: run away. The ambient noise of the restaurant, clinking glasses, murmured conversations, soft jazz, faded to white noise as Marcus realized his carefully constructed world was about to be turned upside down by a woman who had already lost everything once and clearly had nothing left to lose. If you're enjoying the story of courage and second chances, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to discover how a simple ex-convict waitress was about to expose secrets that could destroy an empire built on lies. Marcus crumpled a napkin and hid it in his pocket, his mind racing through increasingly disturbing possibilities. Maya Santos wasn't just an ex-convict working as a waitress. She was there for a specific reason, and that reason involved him. He watched her move through the dining room with a calculated grace that didn't match her supposed background as a simple criminal. Every movement was measured, every glance strategic. When she stopped at the neighboring table to serve a couple of executives, Marcus noticed how she positioned her body to maintain a line of sight to his table. She wasn't just working, she was watching. Anger began to boil in his chest. For months, he had questioned small inconsistencies in his business, minor information leaks that benefited competitors, internal decisions that somehow reached the trade press before official announcements. He had blamed disloyal employees or common corporate espionage. He never imagined someone had infiltrated so deeply into his operation. Maya returned to his table with a dessert he hadn't ordered. "Courtesy of the house," she said, her voice low and controlled. "New York cheesecake. Chef's specialty." Marcus looked at the perfectly presented slice and noticed something strange. There were graham cracker crumbs scattered around the plate in a specific pattern, 3 small, equidistant mounds. It wasn't random decoration. It was a code. "You seem to have a good memory for faces," Marcus said, testing the waters. "Have you seen me before?" Maya smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I have one of those familiar faces, I guess. People always think they know me from somewhere." What Maya didn't say was that she had spent the last 6 months studying every aspect of Marcus Chen's life, not out of obsession or personal revenge, but because someone was paying very well for information about him. Someone who knew exactly how to use a desperate ex-convict in need of work as the perfect espionage tool. Dr. Victoria Marsh, forensic psychiatrist and former head of Riverside's rehabilitation program, had offered Maya something that seemed like a miracle, a well-paying job and a chance to start over. All she needed to do was secure a position at Marcus's restaurant and report his habits, schedules, and vulnerabilities. What Dr. Marsh hadn't told Maya was why she wanted this information, or that Marcus Chun had been responsible for a scandal that destroyed the doctor's career 2 years earlier. Marcus had discovered that the rehabilitation clinic he sponsored was embezzling funds meant for ex-convict programs, using the money for unauthorized research in behavioral manipulation. When he exposed the scheme, Dr. Marsh lost her medical license, her academic position, and her reputation. Now she wanted payback. As Maya placed the plate on the table, her sleeve pulled slightly, revealing more of the tattoo on her wrist. Marcus recognized the symbol immediately. It wasn't a common prison tattoo. It was the logo of the rehabilitation program he had helped dismantle. "Riverside Rehabilitation Program," he said quietly, watching Maya's face contract almost imperceptibly. Dr. Victoria Marsh was a very ambitious person. Maya froze. For a second, her mask of friendly waitress slipped completely, revealing something much more dangerous underneath. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Of course you do." Marcus leaned forward, his voice low but cutting. "The question is, are you here because she sent you or because you have your own scores to settle with me?" The silence stretched between them like a taut rope about to snap. Other customers continued their meals, oblivious to the psychological chess game being played just feet away. Maya took a deep breath, and when she spoke again, her voice carried a weight that wasn't there before. "Do you really want to know the truth, Marcus? Because once I tell you, there's no going back. Not for you, not for me, and certainly not for the people who will be hurt when all this comes to light." Marcus felt a chill down his spine. "What people?" Maya looked around the crowded restaurant, her eyes stopping on familiar faces, employees he had known for years, regular customers who trusted his brand. "The people who believe you are who you say you are. The people who don't know about what you really did in Portland before all this success." Marcus's stomach dropped. Portland, the city where it all began, where he had built his first food truck with money that wasn't completely clean. Secrets he had buried so deeply that not even his closest lawyers knew the whole story. Maya moved closer, her voice a poisonous whisper. "Dr. Marsh may have put me here, but that doesn't mean I'm on her side. In fact, I think you'll find that all of us have much more in common than you imagine." Marcus left the restaurant that night with more questions than answers, but one thing was clear. He needed to find out exactly what Maya Santos knew and who else was involved before his life publicly crumbled. Portland was a chapter he had sealed 15 years ago, or at least thought he had sealed. Back at his penthouse apartment, Marcus activated his private security team. James Morrison, a former federal agent who had managed his confidential affairs for a decade, arrived in less than an hour with a complete dossier on Maya Santos. 18 months at Riverside for document forgery and money laundering. James read from the file. But here's the interesting part. She was an accountant before prison, worked for a construction company in Portland called Hartwell Development. Marcus felt his blood freeze. Hartwell Development, the name he had tried to forget for years. James continued, unaware of the impact of his words. The company went bankrupt shortly after she was arrested. Apparently, there was a massive scheme of overcharging on public contracts. Maya was a junior accountant who discovered the irregularities and tried to report them. She reported it? Marcus asked, his voice tense. Tried to, but when she brought the evidence to authorities, they discovered she had falsified some documents to protect certain people involved in the scheme. The charge was that she was trying to cover up her own crimes. James closed the file. Ironically, the people she tried to protect were never indicted. She carried the blame alone. Marcus knew this story better than James imagined. Hartwell Development had been one of the first companies to finance his food truck in Portland. The money he used to start his empire came directly from the overcharged contracts that Maya had tried to expose. And when the scheme began to unravel, Marcus had disappeared from the city without a trace, taking away money that technically belonged to taxpayers. That night, Marcus couldn't sleep. He paced around the apartment, reviewing every decision he had made 15 years earlier. At the time, he was just a 23-year-old desperate to escape poverty. When Thomas Hartwell offered money for his culinary dream, Marcus didn't ask many questions. He wanted to believe it was a legitimate investment. When the investigations began, Thomas had made it clear that Marcus could easily be implicated as an accomplice if he remained in the city. "You took dirty money, kid," Thomas had said. "Doesn't matter if you knew it or not. What matters is what can be proven." Marcus fled. He used the money to start over in another city, building his reputation, an empire on a foundation of silent guilt. He never knew that a young accountant had sacrificed her own freedom trying to protect him and other innocent company employees. The next morning, Marcus returned to Meridian Prime with a plan. If Maya wanted to play games, he would play too. But this time, he had some cards up his sleeve. He arrived early, before official business hours, and waited in the parking lot until he saw Maya entering through the employee entrance. She wore faded jeans and a worn leather jacket, clothes that told the story of someone who had lost everything and was fighting to rebuild. Marcus intercepted her in the employee break room, a small, poorly lit space at the back of the building. Maya didn't seem surprised to see him. "You found out," she said simply, pouring coffee from an old machine. "Hartwell Development," Marcus affirmed. "You tried to protect me." Maya laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. "I tried to protect everyone. The employees who knew nothing, the subcontractors who were just doing their jobs, even you." She turned to face him. "It worked out well for you, at least." "Maya, I didn't know Dash." "Didn't know what? That the money was dirty? Or that I was arrested for trying to clean up the mess you all made?" Marcus felt the weight of guilt he had carried for years intensify. "If I had known you had sacrificed your freedom, Dash." "You would have done what?" Maya interrupted. "Come back to Portland to share a cell with me? Given up all this wealth to do the right thing?" The silence between them was charged with years of unaddressed consequences. Marcus realized this wasn't just about blackmail or revenge. It was about accountability, about the people who were left behind when he built his success on the wreckage of their lives. "Does Dr. Marsh know about Portland?" Marcus asked. "She knows everything. Spent 2 years investigating you after she lost her medical license. Discovered the Hartwell connection. Found me in prison. Offered a deal." Maya drank her coffee slowly. "But here's what she doesn't know. I'm not doing this for money or revenge." "Then why?" Maya put the cup on the table and looked directly into his eyes. "Because I need to know if the man who built an empire with dirty money is capable of doing the right thing when finally confronted with the truth, or if he'll run away again." Marcus realized he was being tested, not by Dr. Marsh, but by Maya. She had created the situation not to destroy him, but to force him to face what he had done. The question was he ready to pay the price of redemption, or would he choose to protect his empire built on fragile foundations? "I'm going to do the right thing," Marcus said, surprising himself with the firmness in his voice. "But not in the way you or Dr. Marsh expect." Maya raised an eyebrow. "What does that mean?" Marcus pulled out his phone and dialed a number. "James, I need you to organize a press conference for tomorrow at 2 p.m. and call the federal prosecutor in Portland. Tell them I have information about the Hartwell Development case that was never revealed." Maya watched him with growing disbelief. You're going to turn yourself in? I'm going to do more than that. Marcus put away his phone. I'm going to tell the whole truth. About the money. About how I built my empire. About you trying to protect innocent people while I fled like a coward. But Maya shook her head, a strange expression crossing her face. Marcus, you don't understand. You can't do that. Why not? Because Dr. Marsh doesn't just want to see you fall. She wants to completely destroy your life, and public confession is exactly what she needs for the next step of her plan. Marcus felt a chill down his spine. What next step? Maya took a deep breath. She has forged documents showing you as the mastermind of the Hartwell scheme. If you confess publicly, she'll discover this evidence and use your own admission of guilt to prove you were the brain behind it all. You won't just lose your fortune. You'll spend the rest of your life in prison. The room seemed to spin around Marcus. You knew this all along? I found out last night. Dr. Marsh called me after you left the restaurant. She was euphoric, thinking I had managed to get you to confess. Maya looked at the floor. That's when I realized that no matter how noble my intentions were, I was being used to destroy a man who had already suffered enough carrying this guilt. Marcus sat heavily in a chair. So I'm trapped. If I don't confess, I'm a coward who never faced his responsibilities. If I confess, I go to prison for crimes I didn't commit. There's a third option, Maya said calmly. What? We turned the tables on her. Over the next hour, Maya revealed all the details of Dr. Marsh's plan. The psychiatrist had spent 2 years not just investigating Marcus, but creating false evidence, bribing old witnesses, and building a fabricated case. Her obsession with revenge had transformed her into the very criminal she claimed to be fighting. She recorded all our conversations, Maya explained, has hours of audio of me reporting your habits, schedules, vulnerabilities. But she also has recordings of her instructing me to plant false evidence and lie to investigators. Do you still have access to those recordings? Maya smiled for the first time since they'd met. Better than that, I still have the device she gave me to record you, and she doesn't know I figured out how to access the remote storage where everything is saved. They worked until the early hours of the morning, downloading files, organizing evidence, and building a case against Dr. Marsh. Marcus used his resources to hire the best criminal lawyers in the country, but this time not to protect himself, to ensure Dr. Marsh faced justice. The next morning, instead of a public confession, Marcus organized a private meeting with federal prosecutors. He turned over all evidence against Dr. Marsh, admitted his inadvertent participation in the Hartwell scheme, and offered to cooperate fully with any investigation. There's something else, Marcus told the prosecutors. I want to establish a restitution fund for all victims of the Hartwell scheme. I'll contribute $50 million from my personal assets, starting with full compensation for Maya Santos for the years of prison she served unjustly. Maya, sitting beside him in the conference room, felt tears in her eyes. Marcus, you don't need to dash. Yes, I do, he interrupted. I can't go back in time and change my choices, but I can ensure that the people who suffer because of them receive justice. 3 hours later, Dr. Victoria Marsh was arrested at her private clinic on charges of evidence tampering, blackmail, and conspiracy to commit fraud. The recording she had made to incriminate Marcus ended up being proof of her own crimes. When federal agent handcuffed her, Dr. Marsh screamed across the room, "You don't understand. He's guilty. He stole public money." "Dr. Marsh," said the lead agent, "Mr. Chin has already confessed his participation and is cooperating fully. You, on the other hand, are being arrested for fabricating evidence against him. There's a big difference between making a mistake and conspiring to destroy a life." Marcus watched through the federal building windows as Dr. Marsh was taken away. Maya stood beside him, finally free from the weight of carrying secrets and lies. "Do you think this makes us better people?" Maya asked. Marcus thought for a moment. "I think it makes us more honest people. And sometimes that's the only redemption we can hope for." 6 months later, Marcus Chin stood in the same dining room of Meridian Prime, but this time without disguises. The restaurant had become more than a business. It was a symbol of transformation. On the main wall, A discreet plaque informed customers that a percentage of profits was donated to the Hartwell Restorative Justice Fund, helping ex-convicts rebuild their lives. Maya Santos walked through the dining room not as a waitress, but as executive director of the fund. Her transformation had been remarkable, not just in professional wardrobe, but in the confidence she radiated. She had used her unique experience to create programs that actually worked, programs built by someone who knew both the prison system and the struggle to start over. Applications for mentorship program reached 200 this week, Maya reported, showing Marcus a folder with applications. We have ex-convicts being trained in accounting, culinary arts, administration, real companies offering real jobs. Marcus nodded, watching through the windows a group of program participants leaving a training session on the upper floor. Dr. Marsh always talked about rehabilitation, but never understood that you can't help people by keeping them prisoners of their past. Dr. Marsh herself was now serving a 5-year sentence for evidence tampering and conspiracy. Ironically, she had been sent to Riverside, the same prison where Maya had served her time. The inmates, knowing her hypocrisy, had not received her well. I got a letter from her last week, Maya mentioned casually. Marcus raised an eyebrow. What does she want? Apologizing. Said she finally understands the difference between justice and revenge. Maya folded the letter and put it in the drawer. Maybe she does understand. Or maybe she's just trying to reduce her sentence for good behavior. Marcus laughed, a genuine sound that rarely existed before meeting Maya. Are you going to respond? Maybe. Everyone deserves a second chance to do the right thing. Maya paused, looking through the window at the busy street outside. Even her. That was a difference between Maya and Dr. Marsh. Marcus realized Maya had faced her consequences with dignity and used the experience to help others. Dr. Marsh had let herself be consumed by bitterness until she became exactly the type of person she claimed to fight against. That evening, after the last customer had left and the staff finished cleaning, Marcus and Maya sat at the same table where it all began. Table 32, the worst spot in the restaurant that had now become a symbol of how appearances can deceive. Do you ever wonder what it would be like if none of this had happened? Maya asked, twirling a wine glass in her hands. Marcus considered the question. You mean, if I had never taken the Hartwell money? If you had never been arrested? If our lives had followed different paths? Exactly. No, Marcus replied without hesitation. Because then I never would have learned that wealth without integrity is just disguised poverty. And you never would have discovered your true calling of helping people's society for God. Maya smiled. Sometimes the best lessons come wrapped in the worst moments. And sometimes, Marcus added, the people who seem to be your enemies are exactly who you need to become the person you should be. They toasted in silence, not celebrating the past they had overcome, but the future they were building together. A future where mistakes could be transformed into opportunities, where justice meant restoration instead of destruction, and where true wealth was measured not by what you accumulated, but by what you gave back. Outside the restaurant windows, the city continued its frantic pace, millions of people living their own stories of struggle and redemption. Some would find their way as Marcus and Maya did. Others would get lost in bitterness like Dr. Marsh. But all would have the choice that defines who we really are, face our mistakes, or run from them. Marcus Chin had learned that you can't build a solid future on rotten foundations. But he had also discovered that it's never too late to start over, as long as you have enough courage to admit when you're wrong and enough wisdom to do better next time. True justice isn't about punishment. It's about transformation. And sometimes the person who most needs a second chance is the one looking back at you in the mirror. If the story of redemption and second chances touched you, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and share in the comments. What was a moment in your life that forced you to face who you really were? Because we all have our own Table 32 waiting to teach us who we can become.